Okay, so have any of you ever been mistreated by an employee at work or a manager and thought to yourself there wasn't really anything you could do other than quit your job? When you work for a company that is covered by a union, it can prevent these problems. Today I'm going to express to you how the unions were created and why they are so important by going over how they were created and how they help us still today. Before there were unions, workers were exposed to horrible working conditions by their employers, and it didn't really seem to matter because there was no one above their employers to tell them, like, hey, like, you're not supposed to treat your employees like that. So no one really saw it as anything bad. United Farm Workers Organization writes that grape pickers in the early 1960s were making an average of 90 cents an hour, plus 10 cents for however many baskets they picked, like that were full. State laws regarding working standards were simply ignored by growers. At one farm, the boss even made all the workers drink from one can. They called it the beer can, and all of them had to share it. These are some of the workers, even like child labor. And over time, farm workers led by Cesar Chavez, who invented the United Farm Workers, called upon allies and other churches and community groups affiliated with the growers' civil rights movement to pressure on politicians to end the Bracero program in 1964. That's Cesar Chavez right there. And the Bracero program, it was created by Mexican government and U.S. governments, which allowed Mexicans to traffic other immigrants to the U.S. to work for U.S. for like less pay, and then they didn't really care if they were going to get hurt or injured on the job. And the UFW says that public law, no Bracero worker can replace a domestic worker, but in fact the growers actually wanted the program to continue, and they wanted to replace the domestic workers. Even though unions existed then and now, there are some companies that are not unionized and still get away with mistreating workers. In an article by Alan Clifton that was titled "How Walmart is Screwing Employees Out of Benefits," he says that Walmart is the poster child for the greedy, morally bankrupt corporation, and their recent actions prove that they are proud of that fact. Those are Walmart workers. And he goes on to say, what Walmart has done is set the bar for which part-time employees can receive benefits at an average of 24 hours per week. That means if an employee was given that many hours, they were only offered the lowest amount of benefits that Walmart could provide for them, and they weren't allowed to work any overtime. Once they hit that 24-hour mark, it didn't matter if they needed more benefits or anything. They weren't allowed to ask for overtime or try to work more because they would get in trouble and someone would have gone written up. So now that I've told you some of the history of mistreatment of workers from companies and employers, you can start to see why being a part of something bigger is more important. Being a part of a union is great because they offer you protection. They are there if you ever need it. An article written by Matthew Walters and Lawrence Michel titled "How Unions Help All Workers" says that unionized workers receive more generous health benefits than non-unionized workers. They pay 18% lower health care deductibles, and in return, they are 24% more likely to be covered by health insurance paid by their employer. Unionized workers also receive better pension plans. Not only are they more likely to be guaranteed benefits in retirement, their employers contribute 28% more towards their pensions. Unionized workers receive 26% more vacation time and 14% more paid holiday vacation time or holiday time off. Unions have helped to accomplish a lot more to improve everyday life. CNN reporter Donna Brazil wrote about how unions have been a long part of nation's history, fighting for better pay, safer working conditions, healthcare, retirement benefits, education, and civic participation. Unions have brought diverse voices together and have helped for workers to be recognized for their labor. They are there to help you as an employee, not only to watch over you, but to watch over your employer. So if you have a problem with your employer, you can go to someone that's higher than them. So they come in and they also watch, because I work at a union, I work for Stater Brothers, so they come in every, I want to say, month or so. Someone from the union will come in and just walk around and talk to everybody and make sure everybody's okay. I was really thrown off when he came in because he was like, hey, how are you? How do you like working here? Like, are they treating you nicely? And I was just like, who are you? And then he gave me free pens and I was like, oh, you're from the union, okay. I was like, cool, like I just was excited about the pens, but like, but yeah, like they come in and they genuinely care about how you're doing in the workplace. Unions were created because of the terrible environment that workers were in, and not only until someone took a stand did they change. Although I do believe unions are great and great to have, some people may disagree. I do enjoy working under a union. I work for Stater Brothers, and like our union also like does charities, and we raise like money in the store, and then like they have like these big like charity walks and stuff like that. So it's really cool. Like they bring all the other like Stater Brothers together, so it's like a big family. And I like that I have protection. I know that if I have a problem with the man in charge, I could just take it to a higher power instead of like taking it to him. Like I could go to the union, and I know it may cause problems, but you shouldn't be mistreated. Yeah.
Probably. I bet they have probably a color copy.
All right, Jess, the rhetorical question at the beginning was reasonable as an attention device, so I think your subject's identified pretty clearly. The phrasing of the purpose statement is still a little bit awkward, and so I think it probably needs some work, but there was a good preview of the supporting structure in the speech. Though in the body of the speech, I didn't really hear the transitions that made us move from one point to the next. I think you need to work on that a little bit more. There's a good couple of examples, although some of them seem a little out. You know, it's a broad topic when you're talking about it. The United Farm Workers and the issues that they face in the field, I thought that that was important in an explanation about how a union addresses those points. I think that's pretty good. The Bracero program seems like it's a tangential issue and it's a bit of a distraction, so I think that could probably be cut. The criticism of Walmart is, you know, we got one piece of opinion, and to be honest, it mostly sounded like they have a whole bunch of people that they want to keep as part-time workers and they don't want to have full-time workers, and I'm wondering why that's abusive, why that is problematic. I understand why people would want something different, but that's, I think you need to explain what it is that Walmart does to their workers when you say they limit them in some way. Well, that's the conditions on which they were hired. If they're violating labor rules, that's what you ought to be talking about. The argument that says that unions provide their workers with better benefits, and you've got a whole bunch of statistics that you list off, I thought that would make a little bit more sense to have as a visual than the pictures of the protesters or the pictures of the farm workers standing around the grapes and that sort of thing. It seems to me that that's the information that, especially in the second part of the speech, that makes the argument that you were making that the unions have this beneficial impact. And how do we know that? Well, you know, people who work in the same industries, the people who work for a union shop get, you know, they pay less for insurance, they get greater access to health care, they have more days off. If there were fewer, if, you know, for instance, if there's less turnover, the pensions are more successful, that kind of stuff, like you had a couple of things like that. Table charts or a graph would be an easy way to visualize that and make it, I think, a lot more powerful than just stacking up the numbers in the presentation. So I think you miss an opportunity to do some of those things. The first half of the speech, there's a lot of reading going on. I thought you were much better when you started talking about your own experience, when you're talking about working at Stater Brothers and the shop steward coming in and suddenly making conversation with you and how you were surprised about that, and then how the union gets together and does these other things. You're much more animated, you speak to us in a more direct way, and it's more interesting to listen to you talk at that point. We want you to be that way all the time while you're speaking, so work on that. All right, thank you.